Hey everyone, welcome to the webinar. My name is Lindsay and I work here at Flatiron School on the marketing team, focusing on our online program specifically. Today, I'm very excited to be introducing our co-founder and chief innovation officer, Avi, as he talks about how to change things and how to create a roadmap to a new life. So if you've been thinking about changing something, whether it's smaller scale, like becoming a morning person, or something larger, like changing your career, you're in the right place. Before I hand it off to Avi to kick us off, I want to point out the chat feature quickly. If you have any questions at any point, feel free to send them through the chat box. I'll pop back in at the end, and I'll read your questions off to Avi, and we can continue the conversation from there. So with that, I'll let Avi take it away.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Avi. I think we're just going to wait like 1 or 2 minutes just for some other people to join, and then we will get started. I'll tell you all about how I think about change and why I think it's so important. I'm really excited about this one. All right. So we are going to get started. I'm Avi. I'm one of the founders of Flatiron School, and I think a lot about change because at Flatiron School, we help people change their lives by learning a new skill, getting a new job, creating a new community, and it's something really important to me. I think that I really love paradoxes in life, and the paradox of the only consistent thing in the world is change means a lot. Everything is always going to change. Nothing's ever going to stay the same. So understanding how to adopt for change and how to plan for change, I think is super important. In fact, there was a guy a long time ago named Boethius, and he wrote a book called The Consolation of Philosophy, and his goal was to kind of summarize what all the philosophers had learned about life until that point. And he created this kind of metaphor, which is known as the Boethius wheel, for what life is. And basically he says that it's my belief that history is a wheel, that inconstancy is my very essence, says the wheel, rise up on my spokes if you like, but don't complain when you're cast back down into the depths. Good times pass away, but then so do the bad. Immutabilities are tragedy, but it's also our hope. The worst of times, like the best, are always passing away. And when I read that, it spoke a lot to me because there have been times in my life where everything's been going so awesome, and I'm like, yeah, life is amazing. And then something bad happens, and I'm like, oh no, it's terrible. And when it's bad, it seems like it's never ever going to get good, and when it's good, it seems like it should never ever get bad again. But the truth is, it's a wheel, and the very same motion, the very same energy that brings you up is going to be the same thing that brings you down, and that's normal. I think a lot of people tend to blame themselves when their life isn't going the way they want. But the truth is that it's just what happens. It's very hard for things to stay consistent. And as Boethius says that inconsistency is the very essence of life. So understanding how to change is important. And if you're in a bad situation, if you're in a desolate situation, the belief that the situation can change is called hope. And that's why understanding how to change is so important, because without believing that your situation in life can change, you will live without hope. And hope is a gift. I mean, it's the best thing in the world to be able to hope for a better future. So when I talk about change, what I'm really talking about is this kind of human endeavor of hoping for better lives for ourselves, for our kids, for future generations. And the only way to be able to be hopeful is to believe in the ability to change. So let's talk a little bit about change. A couple of years ago at Flatiron School, we do this thing called Feelings Friday, where on every cohort on Friday, the class kind of gets around in a big circle, and everybody just kind of talks about how they're feeling. And I think this was at this point like 5 years ago. There was one student who, by the way, now works at NASA of all places, that said that when he went to college, he had these really big dreams of what his life would be, and then he graduated college and he got a job, and those dreams started getting smaller, and they became more realistic. And he stopped hoping that his life would be any different. And that when he started going to Flatiron School, he said that for the first time, he feels his dreams getting bigger. And this cartoon was made by Saran, who runs Code Newbie. And it just was this moment in my life where that's why I started the school. I love programming, but more importantly, I always wanted students to know that they could change, right? If you can learn how to code in 15 weeks, what else can you do? What else are you capable of? And the worst thing in life is to have your dreams get smaller and smaller and smaller, where you just accept, this is my life. And learning how to hope, learning how to dream again is it's what we wanted, it's what we inspire students to do. And the thing about it is that it is your responsibility to change. It's your responsibility to make things better in life. In my experience, I've been depressed at different points in my life, and I always wanted to know, how are all these other people happy, and what do they have, and what are they doing? And I always loved this cartoon that happiness is something you create yourself. So the first kind of thing to realize is that change is your responsibility. No one is going to do this for you. And you are capable of doing it. You have it within you to be and do whatever you want. But the first thing you have to do is actually take responsibility for that. And it's a big load to carry on your shoulders, saying I am responsible for my life. I am responsible for what happens to me. That there's no bad luck. There's no, excuses. There's no victimization. You are responsible for making your life what it is. And in fact, I would say that everything around you in your life is there because of you, because of choices you made and things you've done. And if you take full responsibility that the only world around you is the world you build and you create by the actions you take, it's a giant responsibility, but that's step one. Because if you're waiting for a lotto ticket to win, or for some, magical sign to say, hey, now is the time for you to, change your job, it's never going to happen. You just have to decide in one moment to take full responsibility for what your life is and who you are as a person. Your identity, oh, I'm not a programmer, I'm not an artist, I'm not a singer. We kind of get trapped in this, you think you know who you are and what you're capable of. And the second that you pigeonhole yourself and you define yourself like that, it seems as though change is impossible. Being anything else would be impossible. But it is totally possible. You just have to take responsibility for it. So let's talk a little bit about kind of how these changes manifest. So the first thing is, when I talk to students, when I talk to people, sometimes they have just a general dissatisfaction in their life. They're just not happy. They can't really understand why or what they want or what they want to be different. They know they want something else, but they really can't describe it. And this is true for people that are in bad situations, and even people that are in good situations but just want more. There's a student that I mentor. He went to Flatiron School when he was 18, and I've been helping him for the last 3 years kind of figure out life, and he's doing pretty good. But he's a little bit sick of New York, and he just feels unsettled. and he wants something else. And when I asked him what it is he wants, he couldn't answer the question. And at Flatiron, we call that as a clarity gap. When you're dissatisfied with your lot in life, or you just got this like angst, but you can't say what it is, that's a clarity gap. It's not clear what you're trying to do. And I think it's really important to be able to articulate and define what your clarity gap is. On a more kind of specific level, sometimes we have students that are not making progress in the course. Like, it's not clicking for them. And we ask them, like, why don't you think it's clicking? Why don't you think it's working? And they say, I don't know. That's a big clarity gap. And we'll ask them questions. Okay, well, where are you studying from? Oh, I'm in my parents' basement. Okay, well, are there a lot of distractions? Yeah, well, my sister's always yelling at me. My mom wants me to clean the house. And the reason why they're not making progress tends to be because they're learning in the wrong environment. It's really hard to learn when you're living with your parents and your family drama is constantly going around you. But when we first ask them what's impeding their progress, their first answer is, I don't know. And that's what we call a clarity gap. So if you're thinking about changing something, you have to be able to understand how clear is it to you, the thing you're trying to change. And the practice that I have and that I try to tell people to do is to visualize it by telling themselves a story. And one thing I think you should do is leave your phone at home, have no electronics with you, and just go for a very long walk. And on that walk, I want you to think about, like, imagine that it's 5 years from today and it is the best day of your life. Like, it's the best day of your life. And I want you to describe that day in as much detail as possible, right? Just imagine it's the best day of my life. And I was just on Jimmy Fallon and I got this amazing payday check, and I was, just invented this unbelievable program that's making everybody happy. And my wife just gave birth, and it's just the best day of your life. Just let your imagination run wild and visualize and tell yourself a story of what is it that you want. I'm walking on the beach and I've got a six-pack or whatever. Whatever it is, you have to be able to define and articulate with details what you're trying to change. And the way to do that is not to think about what you're trying to change, but really about where you're trying to end up. So, and again, I say don't take your phone with you because it's so easy to get distracted. And you got to put, this isn't a 5-minute exercise. I'm talking about hours. I want you to spend hours detailing and even writing down, like, what is the best day of your life? What does that day look like? What's it filled with? Your friends, your job, your relationships, your skills, your inventions, whatever it is, just have a detailed plan for that. Or think about your role models, right? Who are the people whose lives you look at that you think have, like, oh man, that's what I want, right? I want to be David Heinemeier Hansson and create this amazing new web framework like Ruby on Rails, and create Basecamp and software as a service and drive race cars. But again, the first thing is that in order to fix that clarity gap about what you're trying to change, you have to have a goal. And the goal is going to come from either visualizing yourself in the best of all possible worlds, or thinking about who are the people that you admire, that you look up to, whose lives you would want to have a part of. And then research them, learn about where they came from, learn about what tactics they have. Most of these people write a lot about how they became who they are. So change is going to allow you to have a better life. It is nothing short of hope. In order to have that, you have to take responsibility for it. It's your job to change yourself. And then once you've committed to taking responsibility, know what you want. Have visualize it, write it down, put as many details as you can into it. And it's okay if that changes over time, but being dissatisfied with your life, taking responsibility for it, and not having a clear picture of what you're trying to do makes change very difficult. And the next thing about it is you need to really want it. I've met a lot of people that sort of want to learn how to program, but they don't really want it. And there's this old story about a guy that went to a guru, and he said, Guru, I want to be successful. And the guru said, okay, here's what I want you to do. I want you to meet me on the beach tomorrow morning. So the guy shows up at the beach, and the guru's there, and the guru says, if you want to be successful, just walk into the water. So the guy's like, all right, cool. Like, I'm not going to get any advice or anything. Guru says, no, just walk into the water. So he walks into the water, and he's knee high in the water, and he turns around and he says, okay, what now? And the guru says, keep on walking. So he walks a little further, and now the water's at his waist, and he turns around and says, what now? And the guru says, just keep on walking. And now the water's at his shoulders. And he turns around and he says, Guru, what's going on? And the guru says, just keep on walking. And now the guy is underwater, and he's struggling to breathe and hold his breath. And at some point, he can't hold his breath any longer, and he has to surface. And the guru looks at him and says, when you want to be successful, as much as you needed to breathe, then you'll be able to be successful. And that's what I mean by, like, you have to really want it. You can't kind of want to change. And I've been personally in so many times in my life where I kind of wanted it. I kind of wanted to get in better shape. I kind of wanted to learn this. I kind of wanted to save more money, but I didn't really want it. The second that you really want what change in your life, it's gonna be easier. And you gotta be honest with yourself. How bad do you want it? Because you're gonna have to want it a lot. You're gonna have to want it as much as you want to breathe. And one thing that's helpful is to remember why you want it. There's another story about a boxer named Buster Douglas. So this is in the 90s, where Mike Tyson was like the best boxer in the world. In fact, Mike Tyson had never ever been knocked down in something like 25 fights, not knocked down once. And he had a bout with this kind of low-ranked boxer named Buster Douglas, who wasn't really like a super special boxer. And Buster Douglas and Mike Tyson get into the ring, and Mike Tyson is, beating the crap out of Buster Douglas, but Buster Douglas won't go down. And finally, Tyson is starting to get tired, and Buster Douglas is punching him and keeps on fighting and keeps on fighting. And eventually, Buster Douglas knocked down Mike Tyson, which was like unheard of in the boxing world. Buster Douglas beat Mike Tyson. He was a nobody, and he somehow managed to beat the world champion boxer that had never even been knocked down until that point. After the fight, they asked him how he did it. And he said that 2 weeks ago, his mother passed away. And on her deathbed, she told a reporter that my son was gonna beat Mike Tyson. And after she passed away, Buster Douglas didn't want to make a liar out of her. So when he got in the ring, he wasn't fighting for himself. He was fighting for his mom. That was his why. And knowing why you want something, whether it's to, make an impact on the world, support your family in ways that you weren't supported, to whatever it is, you have to understand why you want it. And you have to remind yourself constantly about what you want and why it's important to you. Otherwise, I think that, as change becomes difficult, without knowing why you're doing it, and that why should be as important to you as not making your mom a liar, that's crucial. Okay, so change is hope. It's your responsibility. You have to define exactly what you're trying to change. You have to really, really want it, like commit to, I want this. It's all I think about. And the reason I think about it is because I want to have an impact on the world. You have to have your why. So now you're all ready to go and you're ready to change. The next thing you need to do is start planning things out. So the way I like to plan things out is first to work backwards, right? If I have a vision of what I'm trying to be, I need to think, okay, well, what I want to learn how to speak French. So 1 year from now, I am speaking French. That probably means that like 9 months from now, maybe I graduated a French course. And maybe 6 months from now, maybe I went to Paris for a little bit and hung out in France and immersed myself there. And maybe 3 months ago, I finished Duolingo. And maybe, a month from now, I started learning French. But like, if you have a goal and you can articulate it and you can visualize it and you can really define it, then what you want to start doing is working backwards, right? If in 5 years you want $10 million, that probably means that in 4 years you had like $9 million. And in 3 years you had $6 million. And, just understanding that like it's not about planning forward. It's actually about planning backwards, right? And life rarely ends up exactly the way you imagined it. But as you're walking towards that plan, it's okay to change things. One of my favorite rappers, Common says, slow progress is better than none. Your goal is to start making progress towards a change. And the way I always found to do that is to work backwards, to think about what I want and not where I am now, but rather, okay, imagine I got that thing. What happened a week before that? For instance, when we talk to students about getting a job and we're coaching them through the interview process, okay, you just got a job offer. What happened before you got the job offer? Well, I probably went on an interview. Okay, what happened before you went on an interview? Well, I had to apply to, get that interview. Okay, great. Have you applied to any jobs? Right? Like that's what I mean by working backwards. The next thing is that we tend to focus on results. And, in the job metaphor, the result you want is a job offer, but you should not think about job offers. What you should think about are the habits you take that yield that result. So don't think about, okay, my goal on my to-do list today is get a job offer. No, your goal is to go on 5 interviews a week, to get invited to 3 second-round interviews a month, to send your resume out to at least 30 people, right? Habits are what get us results. Everybody's always waiting for that one opportunity, but opportunity favors the prepared. And the way you can prepare is by just developing habits, right? If you want to run a marathon, it's not about like getting up one day and being super motivated. It's about making running a habit in your life. Whether you're running a half a mile or a mile or a 5K, whatever it is, the habit is what you want to create, because the habit is what's going to yield the goal and the results. But people tend to focus on, well, I wasn't able to run a marathon, so I'm just going to stop running, as opposed to what they really need to motivate themselves with, what they really need to kind of internalize are, what habits do I take? And forget about whether or not they're yielding results or goals. Just make them yours. People say that if you want something to become easy, you have to do it as a habit for at least 30 days. So don't focus on the result or the goal. Just focus on what are the actions you can take towards that goal every day, and don't stop taking those actions. And also start small. It's okay to say, I'm gonna, learn how to code for 30 minutes a day. A lot of students that I had met, years ago, what they would do is they'd have these like heroic weekends where they would get really motivated about learning how to code, and they would spend all of Saturday, not go to sleep on Saturday night, all of Sunday coding. And then they got tired and they waited 3 weeks because they were so tired and they didn't code at all. And then they do it all over again. Something happens on the news, like, oh my God, I have this great idea. I want to learn how to code. And they would do it again, like this big weekend. It's so much more effective to create a habit that's small and build on it, right? If you're learning how to code 30 minutes a day, that's easy. Most people can do that. That's not a huge commitment. And then if you do that for a week, make it 45 minutes for the next week, and then an hour for the next week. And you're starting small. Those are achievable. Those are achievable habits that are getting you closer and closer and closer. But there's very, very rarely in life is there an opportunity where a heroic effort is all you need. Rather, the way you do hard things in life is by chipping away at it slowly over a long period of time. That is to say, the way you don't run a marathon, you run 1 mile, and then you run 2 miles and 3 miles and 4 miles and so forth and so forth. Building that over time is how you are going to change. Change happens very, very, very slowly at first. It's almost imperceptible. In fact, when I started running, I remember my first run, and I was running and I was like sweating and panting and my lungs burnt, and I'd never ever run before. And at one point I was like, oh my God, I must have run like 3 miles by now. And when I looked at my pedometer, I had run a quarter of a mile. It was just like, yeah, I didn't know. And I told myself, I'm just going to keep on running. And every day I woke up early and I went for a run. And I stopped thinking about how fast I was running or what the distance was. And then I remember, like, it sucked. It sucked every single day. Like running, especially at first, it just sucked. My lungs burnt. I was cold. I was tired. Everything about it sucked. And then one day I had run 3 miles. And I was like, wait, when did this happen? Like, when did I get to the point of being able to run that distance? It was happening like slowly every single little day, and I couldn't even notice it. But had I stopped running because, on the second week, I still couldn't run a mile and my lungs still hurt, I never would have gotten to that point. So make small goals, make habits, work backwards, and allow it to happen over time. Patience is just such a hard thing to have, but the things you want in life, you don't need them right now. As I said, change is hard, it's almost imperceptible, and it's uncomfortable. And in fact, this is what it ends up looking like. When people change, this is what happens. You expect like this linear regression of progress, right? Like, I'm gonna be able to run a quarter mile, then I'm gonna be able to run half a mile, then I'm gonna be able to run 3/4 of a mile, then a mile, then a mile and a half, and it's just linear, and that's what people expect change to look like. That is not what happens. It's at first, it's like these little pieces of progress, and then as you make progress, you're aware of what you're capable of, and you're aware about how far you are from it, and then it's like, oh my God, I've just put 2 months into this, and I'm nowhere. And you feel like despair and like, all my friends were right, I could never do this, what was I thinking? But if you can get through that moment and just keep on doing the habits that you know are going to get you there, you hit this inflection point and things start clicking, and then they start really compounding. And this graph is kind of how I've experienced change. And it means knowing up front that for the first 3 to 6 months of changing what you want in your life, you're not going to see any results. And if you accept that and you say, okay, I don't care about the results, I care about the habit. Am I doing this every single day? It starts clicking, and then it's magical. The way I always think about this, like, and this happens to me when I'm like if I have like an app idea, and I've been programming since I was like 11, so I can code, and I have this like amazing idea, and I sit down on the weekend on Friday, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna build this. This is gonna be awesome. It's gonna be so easy. And I start programming, and then like it gets a little hard. I'm like, oh no, it turns out I don't really understand how to stream videos. And then I realized, like, oh no, I gotta streaming videos requires all these streaming services, and I'm gonna have to learn about AWS and Amazon Web Services in order to host all these streams, and it's gonna be way more work than I realized. And I actually don't know how to do it. And now I'm in just this like, oh man, it's been 2 days. I thought this project was going to be like a really quick and easy thing that I was going to do. And turns out now I'm dealing with like Amazon Web Services and like App Gateway and GraphQL and like, oh my God, what was I thinking? That's the swamp of despair, right? It happens to everybody. And if you believe in yourself and if you can hope that if you know it's going to finish, if you love what you're doing, like the act of it, those habits of writing code or running or whatever it is, and you can persist through it, there's a bridge across that swamp of despair. And you can get to this point like, okay, what I'm building still sucks. And then I keep on working on it. And I think to myself like, oh my God, this is good. Okay, I'm just gonna stop. This app, it's good enough the way it is. And then I keep on working on it a little more and I'm like, this is really coming together now. And then I realize, oh my God, I'm doing it. I built this thing. And then the next thought I have is, how the hell did I do it? It's a pretty crazy thing. Like, I don't know the human psyche, but knowing that that's what every person that's successful, every person you admire, they went through a journey like this. Every great actor was in some really shitty movies. Every great actor was like at some point a waiter. And what got them through that is that belief and that hope. And then you get through that swamp of despair and you just keep on going to auditions and eventually it clicks. So understand that emotional journey. Changing is hard, but you commit to it and you will get to that that point where things start getting better. And I think that being able to identify the feelings that you have as you're kind of going through this experience is crucial. When I ask my friends, like, I'm like, oh, how's your day? How you doing? And they're always like, good, great, fine. I think that, culturally, we're not as in touch with like the range and spectrum of our emotions as we should be. And it's so easy to just every day be like, I'm feeling okay, I'm feeling good, I'm feeling, fine. But, thinking about describing your feelings with richer words, like I'm feeling calm, I'm feeling, anxious, I'm feeling, and, maybe you don't tell your friends this when you ask it, but when you ask, every morning, ask yourself, how are you really feeling? Are you feeling motivated? Are you feeling at peace? Are you feeling isolated? Are you feeling demotivated? Because some of those all feelings are amazing. They're all beautiful and they're what make life rich. But what you want to be able to identify by truly looking inside yourself and articulating what you're feeling are, what are the feelings that are driving you? And they're going to be things like confidence and energy and serenity and peace and collaborative and clarity and energy. And then there are going to be feelings that are dragging you down when you start getting frustrated and you start yelling at yourself and you start getting insecure and you start panicking and you start isolating yourself from people and you're confused and you start questioning yourself. Those feelings are okay. What you want to be able to do is note them and say, okay, at this moment, I'm feeling frustrated. And that's okay. Frustration is a feeling that is going to drag you down. But like any other feeling, it fades away. It goes away. I like to think of myself as like having this like intellectual self and then this emotional self. My emotional self can feel frustrated. And sometimes my problem in life is that my intellectual self is like trying to fix that. And you cannot think your way out of anxiety. You can't think your way out of a feeling. Like, your intellect has nothing to do with your feelings. I know that's hard to believe, but it doesn't. So what you need to do is accept the feeling and use your intellect and your intelligence for what it's really good for, which is learning and planning and doing. Your emotions are going to change, because it's raining outside. And it's okay to have those emotions. what I find myself in my life is that I've spent a lot of energy trying to basically intellectualize myself out of my emotions. Oh, I'm feeling anxious. Why am I anxious? It must be because I'm not happy with that product that I'm building. Well, why am I not happy with it? Oh, because, you know, it came out blue and I wanted it to be red. And why didn't the designer listen to me and make it blue? And in the end of the day, I was anxious because like that was just a feeling. But man, I spent a lot of energy intellectualizing that emotion. So be aware of what are the feelings that you're going to have that are going to be driving you forward, and what are the ones that are dragging you down. And don't fight feelings. You just got to learn how to accept them and kind of let them flow through you. Okay, so you know that it's your responsibility to change. You know what you want. You really, really want it. You know why you want it. And you've come up with a plan, you know, you've worked backwards, you've visualized it, you've broken it down into habits. You're not expecting everything to be, you know, magically different the next day. So what do? So some things that I found helpful for myself is, one, if I ever am serious about changing something or doing something, I make a calendar. Like literally, I set myself Google Calendar appointments for like spend an hour learning French. It's on my calendar at 6 p.m. tonight. It says appointment, French class, even though I'm not going to French class. I'm just using Duolingo. The reason why I do that is because it's really, you know, when I make an appointment with myself and the appointment's in my calendar and I get like, you know, an alert on my phone saying like, hey, you got your French lesson right now. What I basically then have to do is, if I don't do it, I'm saying no to me. Like a lot of people are like, you know, they believe that like, oh, I'll just get home after a long day of work and I'll spend an hour programming. But then they get home after a long day of work and, you know, they're tired and the kids are yelling and you got to make dinner. And it's like, it's so easy to say, you know what, I'll do it tomorrow. But if on your schedule, on your calendar, it said, okay, at 6 p.m., you're going to spend 1 hour programming. Then when you get home and all that noise and distractions are happening, you basically are like, no, wait, I scheduled time here. Like I committed to myself that I'm going to spend an hour doing this thing, this habit that I know is going to make me better. I just want to make it as hard as possible for me not to do the thing I was telling myself I would do. I remember when I started running, you know, waking up early, I'm not a morning person, or at least back then I was not a morning person. And I had to go to work by 9 a.m. and I lived, you know, 45 minutes away from work and I had to take the subway. And, you know, the idea of waking up like an hour earlier to go running was really difficult. And at first, what would happen is my alarm would go off at like 6 a.m. as opposed to 7 a.m. And I'd be like, no, I'm not gonna go running. You know, I'm in my PJs, I'm comfortable, no problem. Then I started going to sleep in my running clothes. Literally, I was going to sleep with my shoes on, with my running shoes, my sneakers on my feet, and my shorts and my running shirt. I went to sleep like basically all dressed to go running. Because then when I woke up at 6 in the morning, like I didn't have to get dressed to go running. I basically could like roll out of bed and just go running. It was very hard for me at that point to make excuses for like why I'm not running. So those kinds of things, like whatever you can do, like, yeah, like, I mean, same thing, like a different, like, you know, I have friends that like just don't have alcohol in your house. Like if you want to like cut down drinking, great, throw out all your alcohol. It'll be way harder for you to drink. But make it hard for you not to do the thing you want to do. Make it as hard as possible. And that, again, the tactics I have is like scheduling it, you know, carry around a programming book with you the whole day. Like programming books are giant. They're like pretty big and they're heavy. Like if you carry that thing around, it's going to be annoying because suddenly you're like carrying, you know, a 5-pound book with you, right? But by carrying it around, you're going to constantly ask yourself, why am I carrying around this book? Oh, because I want to learn how to code. That's what I mean by making it hard not to do things. The other thing too is that everyone's lives have only so much room. And in order to change, you need to make room for that. Like, I think about focusing my life and simplifying it, right? Like if I wanna, I don't know, I wanna learn how to rock climb. And right now I'm also taking improv classes and I have a job and I'm going on, I'm dating or something. Like, wow, it's really hard for me to incorporate something new in my life when I have all this other stuff. You have to like simplify your life to make room for the new thing in it, okay? And that might mean like, think about who your friends are and which of them are toxic and which of them are always taking up your time. And do you really need that? Is that really the world that you want to inhabit? Like you get to choose who is in your life, and it's okay to make room in your life. If you've got like this toxic best friend that's always calling you at 2 a.m. because they're out and they're, want you to come party. And, again, you're trying to like learn how to code or lose weight or whatever it is. Maybe don't be friends with that person for a little while, but you have to make room for the changes in your life. I think journaling and keeping a diary is like the most important. It's just a great habit. Every morning I do the following things. I write down 3 things that I'm grateful for, 3 things that I appreciate about myself. I write down how many hours I got to sleep, and I write how my body feels. Like, do I feel tense? Do I feel relaxed? Do I feel like do I feel strong? Like literally physical body feelings. Do I feel sore? Do I feel jittery? Then I write down like intellectually, how am I feeling? Am I confused? Am I motivated? Am I clear? Am I calm? Like what is my intellectual kind of feeling? And then how do I feel emotionally? Am I happy? Am I sad? Am I lonely? Am I demotivated? Things like that. But keeping a diary of your progress, whether it's like your weight or how much you've learned. Again, literally, like when people are learning how to code, like write down everything you've learned. I learned how to define a method. I learned how to accept an argument. I learned how to define a return value. I learned how to make an if statement. If like you integrate like that into your daily habits, you're gonna start seeing like, I mean, man, it's just like a pleasure. Like you get to watch yourself become a better person. It's like you're in your own movie. You're in your own inspirational movie where like the main character is, in this awesome montage sequence doing the thing. And I mean, that's you. But in order to make that you actually have to keep track of it so that you can see the arc. And then the next thing is ignore yourself. Like, like in times where I've like wanted to lose weight, so I'll start eating better and I'll start going to the gym more. And for like the first 2 weeks, in fact, not losing weight, I am somehow gaining weight. And at that point, I'm like, okay, just, screw this. I'm just gonna give up. You have to ignore yourself. Like I made a commitment to myself, and once I start walking down that road, like you just have to ignore the voices in your head that are telling you that you can't do it, that it's not worth it, that this isn't ever going to happen, and it's all bull, and there's no way you could be better. That part of you is important, but it's not accurate. So be willing to ignore yourself, okay? Like, if I remember I was talking to someone that had quit drinking, and when they quit drinking, they told me that they don't feel any better. And the thing is that when you quit drinking, you don't actually feel better for like 6 months. And if what you were looking for was to feel better about yourself, once you quit, you don't feel better about yourself. You feel, in fact, the first 3 months, you feel worse every day. But like 6 months later, you actually start feeling better. And you just have to ignore yourself in that moment. There are 2 different frameworks that I've been thinking a lot about. I like making a lot of to-do lists, and my to-do lists always would say something like, I need to go to the gym. I need to clean my apartment. I need to, organize my music. Like, I always express the things in my life, my tasks, as needs. And then one day, I started framing them as wants. I don't need to go to the gym. I want to go to the gym. I want to organize my music collection. I want to do my laundry. I want to clean my apartment. Like, how you talk to yourself, it's like, I mean, it's so magical. But think about that. Like, needing to go to the gym, and I go to the gym and I did what I needed to do. I don't feel great about it. Oh, it was just like I needed to do something, I did it, who cares? But if I just tell myself I want to go to the gym, and then like I go to the gym, and when I'm leaving the gym, I'm like, that was awesome. I got to do what I want. Doing what you want in life is a great feeling, right? Doing what you need in life feels crappy. So instead of like thinking about like, I need to spend an hour a day learning how to code, I'm telling you, use the word want. I want to spend an hour a day learning how to code, right? I don't need to lose weight. I want to lose weight. I want to eat healthier, okay? Want is like, you're rewarding yourself. You're admitting a desire. Need is like a punishment, right? So just think about that need versus want. Frame everything as what you want to do. You never have a to-do list that is, I need. What do you want? And doing what you want is like awesome. Doing what you need to kind of sucks. And I'm telling you, they're the exact same thing. The other thing I think a lot about is what people call do, have, be versus be, have, do. We love talking about what you need to do so that you can have in order to be. Like, I have to go to the gym so I can be fit, right? I have to learn how to code so I can get a better job. Instead of thinking of it that way, think about what you want to be, right? So so that you'll have what you need to do. I want to be fit so that I can go to the gym, right? I want to make more money so I can learn how to code. It's this kind of, again, it's like the need versus want, but it's just a reframing of how you talk to yourself, right? I'm going to be fit so I can be a better rock climber. I'm going to be a programmer so I could have more money. Not I'm going to do this boot camp so that I can have a better job. I just think that, like, again, how you talk to yourself matters. It keeps you motivated. It'll make executing all this stuff way easier. So those are kind of two frameworks I like to use a lot when I'm talking to myself. It's not about what I need to do. It's about what do I want to do. It's not about what I need to do in order to have something so I can be something. It's what am I so that I can do something. And then I'm going to go through these really quickly because I want to leave some time for questions. But every now and then students will ask me for like, hey, give me some advice on living a better life. And the best advice I've ever gotten, the best advice I ever given is work hard, be nice, stay positive, and have faith. That's it. Okay. It is like the secret to life. Work hard. Hard work is not something to be avoided because the work you're doing in life, these should be something you love. And then be nice to people, like be kind to people, even those that disagree with you, whose opinions you hate. Like, just be a nice person. Try to stay positive. Like, negativity, there's no situation that is made better if you're like, this really sucks. Like, just stay positive. And then ultimately have faith. Like, be hopeful, believe that it can be better. Don't ever lose that faith in a better life. So work hard, be nice, stay positive, and have faith. And just really quickly, here's why working hard is a good thing. One, it's something you can control, okay? Like, you get to choose how hard you work. And it is okay for you to work, there was like this just now, I remember right before New Year's, this a Twitter like debate that like, you don't need to work more than 40 hours a week to be successful. right? No one, and then other people were like, you have to work at least 80 hours a week to be successful. Listen, I don't know who's right. And in fact, I think that anyone telling you what you need to do is just totally crazy, but you get to choose. The effort you put into life is in your control, okay? It is, I swear, no one has ever fired the person that gets to the office first and leaves last, okay? Like, when I started programming, I worked at this hedge fund when I was 20, and I wasn't a really good programmer, and all the other programmers hated me. Like I promised, like what I told myself was, I'm just going to work harder than them. I'm 20 and I don't have any friends and I don't have a life, so they're going to put in 10-hour days and I'm going to put in 14-hour days. That's a competitive advantage. Okay, just work harder than other people. It gets you a lot. And again, you get to choose to do that. I'm not saying you have to do that, but it's a choice that you get to make. And it is a consistent rate of return. If you are always working harder, you will always be getting a little better. No one gets weaker every day they go to the gym. No one gets stupider every day they learn how to code. I think that kindness creates opportunities. Like, people remember when you were nice to them, and you never know how those people are going to help you. Again, I think that practicing gratitude and appreciation makes you more aware of yourself and your own needs and other people's needs. And at the end of the day, I promise you, in this world, one thing that is certain is that love is wise and hatred is foolish. We just need to learn to love each other, and the way we do that is by forgiving each other, forgiving ourselves, and being nice to each other. As I said about positivity, negativity never helps. It doesn't. I think that attitude is a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like, if you pretend to be happy long enough, guess what? You're gonna eventually be happy. And then have faith. Listen, you don't know what the future is. You don't, okay? You don't know if you're gonna win the lottery tomorrow, if there's going to be an asteroid that hits the world. Nothing is certain anyway, so you might as well hope for the best. Hope is a thing with feathers. That's from an Emily Dickinson poem, which is one of my favorite poems, and you should read it. But yeah, like, if you can't hope for a better life, then you're accepting a life that you don't need to accept. And also, having faith, believing in something better, it costs nothing, okay? Like, I have a friend that I was talking to recently that hates his job, hates it. He hates his job. And I told him, why doesn't he get another job? And he said that he's really scared about getting another job. And I was like, okay, but listen, that doesn't make any sense. The other job might be better or worse, but what you know for certain right now is that you hate this job. So how can you not believe that another job might be better? Sure, it might be bad, but you're 100% certain of how bad it is right now. And people get oddly comfortable with bad, like, oh, well, at least I know it's this bad and it's not worse. Like, if I quit my job that I hate, where my boss is abusive and my coworkers never talk to me, if I quit it, I might end up in a place that's even worse than this. That might be true, but you don't know. But what you do know right now is that this job sucks. And then ultimately, like, people are always like, how long is it going to take, right? How long is it going to take me to learn how to code? How long is it going to take me to get in shape? How long is it going to take me to make money? Who cares? Life is really, really, really long. And time doesn't matter, okay? It just doesn't. Like, this one time I went on this crazy, like, survival hike in a desert where I only had a knife and a blanket for like 7 days. And it sucked. I mean, it was an incredible experience, but it's not a pleasant, like, experience. And I remember when I was walking out, I kept on wondering, like, how long it was going to take me to get out of this desert. And at one point I realized that it doesn't matter, because there's no way I'm staying in the desert. So I just needed to put like one foot in front of the other. And if it was an hour, great. If it was 2 hours, great. If it was 10 hours, great. It didn't really matter because there was no way I was staying there. So like, don't think about how long things take. It's a useless measure and we don't know. And I promise you, when you can change your life, the life you're going to live with that change is always going to be longer than the life you lived without it. So time doesn't matter. Some just random things that help. Find a community of people that are doing what you're trying to do. Be patient. I think you should meditate every day, express gratitude, and don't stop. Like if you are tired of starting over and over and over again, here's a piece of advice. Stop quitting, okay? Like once you commit to the change that you want to make, don't stop. It's okay if you slow down, but don't stop, okay? Just keep on making as much progress as you can. But the second that you basically are like, I'm just gonna stop on the diet, I'm gonna stop going to gym, I'm gonna stop, you have to restart, and restarting is hard. So don't stop. It's the secret to not having to start over. So with that, I'm going to take some questions. Let's see what questions we have from people.
I can feed them to you if that's easier for you.
Yeah, great.
Cool. So we have a question from Connie. She asks, what do you do when you get discouraged? Techniques for overcoming doubt or fear.
That's a great question. What do I do when I get discouraged? I mean, one thing I do is I accept it. Like, it's totally normal to feel discouraged, to feel, you know, like it's not going to happen. What I try to do is like really accept that feeling. And what I try to rely on, again, like discourage it. Even if I'm discouraged, I still want to keep up the habit. Like I've committed to something, I'm just going to do it. And you know, like you have to know that everyone around you like gets discouraged. Like I can't tell you, I've been running Flatiron School for almost 8 years now. I've had ups and downs, I've been discouraged. Like it's just normal. No one is always happy all the time. They're not. You just don't get to see it. I have a list of inspirational movies that I watch. But then the biggest thing I do in order to stay motivated and when I get discouraged is it's just time. Like the feeling is going to pass. But if you get discouraged and you quit, that's what kills you. Because 3 months later, you're gonna remember that you really wanted to change something, and then you gotta start all over again. And that's what I mean when I said ignore yourself. When you're feeling discouraged, ignore yourself. Just ignore it.
Great advice. I think we'll take 2 more questions and then we'll wrap up. But have a second question. I'm planning to start a business, but every time I hit an idea, the negatives overwhelm me and I go to the next idea. How do I get out of that cycle?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's the same thing. Like you're gonna learn more starting a business and failing than you are never having started a business at all. Like it's that simple, right? I must have tried to start 7 or 8 companies before my first company actually existed. And you know, I remember like I was like 22 and I was telling all my friends I was going to be like doing startups, and every time I came up with an idea, I'd be like, oh my God, you don't understand, I'm going to make like $1 billion. And like, you know, but then if I wouldn't work on it, and you know, they, you know, basically nothing would happen. And then I'd come with another idea and I'd tell all my friends, oh my God, like I have this amazing idea, I'm going to make like $1 billion. And you know, I'm sure my friends all like, I was like a joker to them. I was like this like, you know, guy that thinks like, they're like, who do you think you are? Like, you know, you're just a programmer. Like, and I never stopped. I just kept on trying. And no matter what people thought of me, how silly I sounded, you know, I just kept on doing it. And eventually one of them actually clicked. You know, I'd write business plans. I would go to networking of meetings. Like I did all the things that you would need to do to start a real business, just none of them materialized. And I looked like an idiot. But again, you're going to learn more starting a business and failing than not starting one. So, you know, like no one can tell you if your idea is good or not. But I will tell you that starting a business is about marketing, about product, about sales, about research. Go through those motions. And then if it fails, great. You've now learned how not to start a business. And then try it again. That's it. But like, you know, jumping from one idea to another is not a great idea. I mean, it's okay to do that, but make sure that every single time you're jumping to a new idea, you've made a little more progress. You've written a marketing plan, you've done user research, you've sketched out the product, you know. So it's okay, like, you know, like I would sketch out a product I wanted to build, and then I wouldn't do it. And then I would pick another idea and I'd write a business plan. But like what I was really doing was like building the skill set in all of these kind of practice ideas. But if you're just in your own head and you're like, idea one, but I don't do anything about it. Idea two, but I don't do anything about it. You're not going to ever get better and you're not going to learn anything.
Great perspective to have, that failure can also be a learning experience. So awesome. Last question we'll answer. I think my biggest setback has been wanting approval or support from others, wanting to go to the gym only if I have a buddy, writing my next big story if my friends enjoy the story. Without their support or interest, I find myself slowing down. How do I overcome that?
Oh man, that is such a good question. You guys are asking great questions. You know, what I said before is community. I don't know how to say this, but I think, you know, people, I remember when I dropped out of college, you know, all my friends were basically my high school friends. And you know, I was like, okay, we've been friends for, you know, 7 years. Of course, we're always going to be friends. But my high school friends, you know, basically thought I was a joke. I was a college dropout. I was trying to do all these startups, you know, like, you know, they just saw me as the troublemaker that I was in high school and like the college dropout, and they never saw me as anything else. And they treated me that way. And then one day I realized I don't need to be friends with them. Like, you get to choose who your friends are. And finding friends that do want to go to the gym and want to read your stories and want you to read their stories. Like, that's what I meant about like the community. And ultimately, you know, in terms of like, oh, I only want to go to the gym if I have someone to go to the gym with. I only want to write a story if my friends are going to like it. That's why, you know, that's why the habit is more important, in the sense that, you know, it's not that I only want to write a story if my friends are going to like it. Like, that's the wrong, don't look at it that way. What you should say to yourself is, I want to write an hour a day. And even put it on your calendar, you know, 9 to 10 p.m. tonight, I'm writing for an hour. And like, put your phone somewhere else and sit in front of your computer. And even if you're staring at a blank piece of paper for an hour and you don't write one word, that's better, because it's the habit. It's the habit. Like, professionals, people that are great at these things, they do it habitually. You know, like comedians, they're not like writing one joke and like going to the stand-up club and crushing it. They are going, I mean, they are doing some shitty gigs. There's this really great Amazon documentary that I can't remember, but it's about comedians, and it's about like them getting into like these amateur comedians going to like the Montreal Comedy Festival. And I remember one of them has like a gig in like a Denny's in like Southern California. And like, that's where they had to go to practice their routine. And it's the same jokes, but it's how you get better. Again, it's the habit, not the result. So one, find a community of people that are interested in the habit and not the results. If your friends are not supportive, get new friends, and like, don't worry about whether or not it's good. In fact, by definition, it's going to suck at first, but you're going to get better at it. Like, that's what, you know, the thing no one ever tells beginners is that it's okay to be sucky at something. Like, of course it is. That's what being a beginner means. The thing that separates beginners from experts is that experts didn't quit when they sucked. Like, no one is born with talents. You work it, you earn it through experience, through not, and again, like, I just don't, man, if what I'm building sucks, I don't care. I'm still gonna build it, because through building something sucky, I get better at building things. And eventually, one of the things I build is gonna be good. So that's how you do it. All right.
Awesome. I'll let you wrap up, but yeah, 5 minutes past the hour. Just want to let everyone know that afterwards I'll send out the recording to this webinar so you have it to rewatch whenever you'd like.
Yeah. Well, thank you all so much. Again, what you're trying to do is hard. It's hard for everybody. It really is. But you can do it. And it has to be like this internal focus, like that you just hold deep inside yourself and think about the actions and not the results. Connect with other people to stay motivated. Write on your mirror. Oh my God, it was really embarrassing because I used to do this. Like, I would write, what my goals were in my bathroom mirror. And then every now and then I'd have friends over and they would go to my bathroom and they'd be like, dude, it says like, run a marathon on your bathroom mirror, right? And like, again, they would make fun of me because I was always this like stupid, ambitious kid that had like these like big dreams. And they wanted to tear it down, but I stuck to it and I did run that marathon. You guys are awesome. I believe in you. Believe in yourself. It's totally worth it. And we are around if you have any questions. Have a great night.